Hey guys, it's Manga again. I have the episode 8 review of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. And this episode is titled, or entitled, Everything's Relative, for a very specific reason. You know, it took me an ungodly amount of time to realize what that even meant in the show. I can't believe I didn't understand that when I was a kid. I was like, what does that mean? What do they mean relative? Is it something with science, something to do with science? But no, of course, everything's relative because they mean this episode's about Mokuba's first appearance and he's Kaiba's brother, so he's his relative. Duh. Ugh. My 6-year-old brain couldn't understand this. So anyway, let's get into the 5 points of the episode, guys. Um, so the first point of this is the not the very first opening scene, but the second scene of this episode is my favorite Pegasus scene. And I love almost every Pegasus scene very much, and he's very entertaining, but this scene tops all the others to me. Still after all these years, I still think it's the best scene with him. It perfectly shows what kind of person he is and exactly what he loves. And I think that's very important to relate to a villain. And so for this episode, you know, Mokuba escapes. Croquet's like, oh no. And, Croquet has the smoker voice. I always thought Croquet had a bad smoker voice. And he goes up and he interrupts Pegasus during his gorgonzola cheese and fruit juice time. Even though it wasn't fruit juice later in the Pyramid of Light movie, he called it white wine spritzers. But it's funny that he called it fruit juice here. I guess 4Kids was afraid of calling it wine back then. But it clearly is wine that he's sipping, but he just calls it fruit juice. For the sake of it, we'll call it that. And I love how it just cuts from Croquet saying, oh no, to Pegasus reading and enjoying his cheese and wine and reading his Funny Bunny comic. And he's like, I love his slow, devious laughter and joyous laughter when you don't even see him at the beginning. He's like, I love that. That's my favorite part with him. I love him so much. He's such a great character. Without him, Duelist Kingdom would not have been nearly as fun. So anyway, that was the first point. I just wanted to point out that. Oh, and one more thing. When Croquet interrupts him, he's like, You can tell that was a huge interruption. Croquet should not have done that. He angered Pegasus very much. And this was Pegasus at the peak of his powers. You know, no one was stronger than him to me at this point with an item. He had mastered his item. So anyway, that's the first point. The second point, it was always funny to me the gang's or the group's inability to understand that was Mokuba. I guess they didn't know him, but you know what? I should probably change that. I guess they didn't know Mokuba, but how do they not know that he's clearly not a threat? Yeah, he's a little thief, but I never thought he was that much of a threat or anything. I guess the group seemed kind of dumb on that. I don't know. Something about it seemed ridiculously dumb to me. It didn't hurt the episode hardly at all anyway, though. It's probably the only thing that kept it from being a 10, though. I will say that. That's probably a spoiler to how high this episode rates. It's one of my favorite episodes. That's my favorite Pegasus moment. This moment wasn't the greatest. The duel was probably the worst duel in Duelist Kingdom because there's only like 3 turns in it, or 4 turns in it. Only 3 monsters were played, so that part, yeah, lackluster. So the third point, the Pharaoh's speech he gives to Mokuba. He says, Mokuba, wait, you'll never rescue your brother that way. I love that part because it again shows how much the Pharaoh cares and how much respect he has for his opponents. As much as they cheat, he still tries to have respect for his opponents. And he respects Kaiba, so he respects his brother a lot. And that just leaves you into a window of what the Pharaoh values very much. And the Pharaoh's music backing it up is always great, always great. Every time he talks, his theme pretty much plays anyway. So that was a great third point in my opinion. It also built this episode's resume up. So the fourth point, the famous scene with Kaiba when he's in his little escape house or his getaway house, building up his prototype dual discs, and the two Pegasus goons bust through the door and they're like, "Open the door, Kaiba!" And then they they have their finger guns. Obviously, they had guns in the sub, but I think it was way better having finger guns in the dubbed. It was way more famous, and they 4Kids honestly made it even more famous. So I never doubt 4Kids on their genius. Just like with the Shadow Realm, all this stuff makes sense to me. Of course, I grew up with it, but I know a lot of people would disagree with me. But I personally like it. I think it adds to the genius and to the memorability of the show. That's why it's one of the most memorable animes of all time. Um, so the whole finger gun part, and of course Kaiba appearing like he committed suicide. But he obviously had a plan because he's like, "You'll never catch me alive." But I don't understand why he didn't bring his deck with him. Why did he leave his deck on the table? You would think that was probably, other than the dual discs, the most important thing he had with him. And he forgot it somehow. I know he's in a rush, but that's his deck. Uh, it just was odd to me. Always was odd to me, but they had to have it that way so Ghost Kaiba could take his deck and pretend to be him. So anyway, that's the fourth point. The fifth point, the moment where Ghost Kaiba shows up, it flips everything on its head. You actually think it's Kaiba. They trick you into thinking Kaiba died, because I thought he did die when I was a kid, and I thought this really was his ghost. The way they built it up at the beginning of the next episode, on episode 9 too, was really creepy, and it really made it feel like Kaiba was dead, that this was Ghost Kaiba. It was genius, in my opinion. By the way, I was a little bit proud of the Pegasus drawing, but the Ghost Kaiba drawing, I really was screwing up on. I must be honest with you guys. It was mainly his ears. Ear proportions were horrible. I was way off. His ears are like Dumbo. So anyway, the fifth point, yeah, Ghost Kaiba shows up and everyone's shocked. I definitely was shocked when I first saw it at 6 years old, and he's like, "Yes, it's me, Kaiba, and this time you don't stand a ghost of a chance." I love that part. That was the origin of Ghost of a Chance, which I think Bones used later, and someone else used it too. It may have been Makora also used it, but someone else used it. And yeah, it was the origin of Ghost of the Chance. This episode had a lot of great moments. Even though the duel was pretty horrible in it, it was one of the very worst duels in Duel Monsters. It still had amazing character building moments, incredible moments. Um, so it had the finger gun moment. It had Pegasus's cartoon reading moment. It had the Pharaoh's speech moment. It had the Ghost of a Chance. I mean, it had everything. So when you combine all that together, if I would rate it, definitely would rate it a 9.5 out of 10. 9.5 out of 10. Definitely. It was almost as good as the first episode, except the duel was pretty horrible compared to the first episode. That's the only thing this episode lacks, is a good duel. Or a good start or end to a duel. Because most episodes, most duels in Duel Monsters, as you guys should know, are not one episode. In Duelist Kingdom, they somewhat are, but most of the time they're not. So definitely a 9.5 out of 10. The episode MVP is a close one because it's really between Pegasus, Kaiba, and the Pharaoh. But the Pharaoh and Kaiba didn't really have as much to do this episode, so I have to give it to Pegasus. Just his flashback where it showed where he took control of the company with the Big Five, kidnapping Mokuba. That was really important for him. It was very important at the beginning, showing his character eating the Gorgonzola cheese, drinking the fruit juice, and all that stuff, and then getting mad when he got interrupted. All that builds Pegasus up, his character up. So I would give the episode MVP to Pegasus, Maximilian Pegasus. And I love this episode. It makes me extremely nostalgic. Very nostalgic episode. I still go back and watch it every now and then. The ending is very creepy when Ghost Kaiba shows up. In fact, I'm looking at his face right now because I had to use it to draw. And God, thank goodness I fixed those Dumbo ears, right, guys? Well, anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of this drawing in this video. This one was especially fun to make. This episode was very fun to make. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you for episode 10, which is what's the name of it? It's not give up the no, episode 9. I'm sorry. I'll see you for episode 9, which is dang it, I forget the name of it. Episode 10's give up the ghost. Episode 9 is Duel with a Ghoul. Duel with a Ghoul. All right, so I'll see you guys for the next episode. Bye.